FBI agent Kate Macer, an expert in kidnapping cases, is invited to join a mysterious task force whose objective is to trace leaders of drug cartels in Mexico and to cause maximum disruption to their operations. However, all is not as straightforward as Kate hoped, and this leads to a journey of moral exploration and discovery, and conflict with her newfound colleagues. Fundamentally, Sicario presents us with a juxtaposition of law-abiding principle and idealism, disillusioned and determined realism, and ruthless or amoral acts of retribution, showing how one can descend from one to another. Kate does everything by the book and is proud of her honesty and dedication to duty. That said, she is willing to accept that her efforts have made barely a dent in the nefarious activities of the Mexican cartels and other drug gangs. Matt Graver, a CIA officer specialising in covert activities, recognises all too well the legal limits, restrictions and confines of confronting these highly organised and ruthless drug gangs, and he is willing to push legal boundaries to their limits and beyond in his determination to halt or at least curtail their activities. That said, there are limits that he, as a representative of his government, cannot go beyond, and that is where Alejandro Gillick comes in. Alejandro has suffered great personal loss and pain, and is more than willing to apply the gang's own rules of engagement and standards to them. He takes brutal and merciless action as a private citizen, though with the willing, if necessarily limited, cooperation of Matt and his forces. Kate is impressed by Matt's knowledge, determination and purpose, and is persuaded to join him in a venture that is laden with murky secrecy, but which promises to be more effective in a few hours than all her efforts to obstruct the flow of drugs into her country over several years. She is thus drawn into a dark and amoral world in which it seems the end justifies the means. Vaguely reminiscent of the principle behind The Dirty Dozen, our film charts the decline of idealistic and principled law enforcers in favour of devoted and perhaps desperate professionals willing to do whatever it takes to damage the cartel's operations. We are shown evidence of the cartel's brutal and ruthless methods used to establish and maintain their position of criminal dominance, and Kate, representing the relatively innocent and morally upright audience, is rightfully horrified and disturbed. She may be morally outraged by the actions of her new colleagues, but she sees the magnitude and moral dilemma of the problem, and is willing to recognise the progress Matt and his colleagues have made and the effectiveness of their admittedly dubious methods. Kate is left in no doubt as to the vicious and pitiless methods the gangs will employ to gain the advantage, when her trust is shattered by a treacherous would-be lover, and when she discovers the reasons for Alejandro's contempt for and utterly merciless attitude towards his enemy. His wife and daughter were brutally slain as a result of his efforts to legally prosecute the gangs. So, Alejandro was undoubtedly once as idealistic as Kate, but his tragic experience in losing his family taught him that principle has little or no value when dealing with people who do not share your values, and who are willing to show no mercy in seeking to assert their will. As the film progresses, Alejandro becomes a central figure, and his actions provide a demonstration of the level of ethically dubious determination and even inhumanity which may be necessary to dent the drug gang's activities. It is, quite simply, a matter of tit for tat. Alejandro is willing and able to stoop to their depths to stop them because he has lost everything, including his compassion and moral inhibitions due to their actions and methods. Ironically, the gang's success is dependent on the humanity of their victims, as they react with horror and fear to the gang's intimidation and savage actions. In order to combat the gang's progress, Alejandro has committed to allaying any vestiges of humanity. The gangs, and any willing to support them, must be treated in the same way the gangs are willing to treat others, and, as Kate discovers, Alejandro is willing to apply his brutal determination and disregard for humanity and compassion to anyone who may hinder his plans for the gang's elimination. For him, there is no room for legal or moral squeamishness, and, although he is driven by a desire to do good and eliminate what he sees as a force of evil, his conduct raises questions about his own soul. This neo-noir par excellence seems to suggest that man-made rules are great, so long as everyone agrees to abide by them. But extreme contempt for society's rules may require extreme solutions. Amorality may be called upon to defeat amorality. though a facade of legality and respectability is required to avert general anarchy. Toward the end of the film, Kate has an opportunity to stop Alejandro, but she cannot bring herself to do so. Whether this is due to the strength of her principles, or a realization that her principles serve little purpose in the face of abject amorality, is not clear, but she is left to reflect on her outlook on life. The film ends with a haunting image of a mother watching her son play football with the sound of gunfire in the background. The veneer of social normality and fun with the distant reality of the ever-present threat of amoral violence. This film works because, by and large, we in the audience will have retained our idealism, and as such we are shocked by the events and perspectives in the film. We may be represented by Kate, and we, as well as Kate, have our eyes opened to relentlessly escalating and violent issues, and their potential solutions that are equally unremitting and ferocious. This erosion or undermining of the veneer of respectability and propriety in society is explored in different ways in two of Taylor Sheridan's other works, Hell or High Water and Wind River. I have to say I was somewhat disappointed by the sequel, perhaps because the brutality was not offset or balanced by the idealistic approach we had in Kate. It became a matter of just how brutal things can become, and there was little or no shock value or conflict as principle and idealism have been eradicated and replaced by similar but opposing factions of violence and immorality. My thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it of some value.